Welcome to Tuesday's Thought. Tonight I will be talking about suicide prevention awareness. This is the month of September, and September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. So that's what I'll be talking about, a very important topic tonight, even though all the Tuesday's Thoughts are important. So please go ahead, share, like, subscribe. Please share, as this is very, very important. So welcome back, and I am Jassett Crooks McGrowder, and we're going to go right into looking at suicide prevention awareness. And I'm wearing a t-shirt that says suicide prevention. You might not be able to see all of it, but it says you are not alone. And we're going to talk about what you can do as well if you are experiencing suicide ideation or knows someone who is suicidal. Let's look at the definition of suicide, even though everyone most likely know the definition of that. It is defined as death caused by self-directed injurious behavior with intent to die as a result of the behavior. And suicide attempt is a non-fatal, self-directed, potentially injurious behavior with intent to die as a result of the behavior. And a suicide attempt might not result in any injury. So it's non-fatal because the person did not die, and it's an attempt because the person did not die. Then we also have suicide ideation, and that refers to thinking about, considering, or planning suicide. So we have suicide, suicide attempt, and suicide ideation. I'm going to give you some stats in regard to suicide. According to the Executive Director for the Canadian Association for Suicide Prevention, every year, 160 million people worldwide contemplate suicide, and 800,000 of them die by suicide. According to the CDC report in 2020, suicide was the second leading cause of death among individuals between the ages of 10 to 14 and 25 to 34 years old. It was the third leading cause of death among individuals between the ages 15 to 24, and the fourth leading cause of death among individuals between the age of 35 and 44. So there was nearly 2 times as many suicides, 45,979 in the United States, as there were homicides, which was 24,576. So as you can see, suicide is a major issue. Suicide is currently the third cause of death in 15 to 25-year-old African American males. This one is shocking. For children aged 5 to 12, so think about it, a 5-year-old, age 5 to 12 years old, African American males are dying at a higher rate than any other racial or ethnic group. And according to the CDC, suicide rates have doubled among Black men since 1980. Suicide rate among Black females ages 13 through 19 rose 182% between 2001 and 2017, according to a study published in the Journal of Community Health, and 60% Black teen males in that same period. So people who are contemplating suicide might feel that there's no way out of their situation, and their best hope is to die by suicide. These individuals may be overwhelmed, bombarded with feelings of hopelessness, helplessness, fear, isolation, hatred toward themselves, anxiety, depression, etc. And they are in an immeasurable amount of psychological pain, to the point where they don't see any other option than to end their lives. So let's talk a few minutes about myths about suicide, because sometimes we have the wrong idea about suicide. So myth one, people who talk about suicide are just trying to get attention. That is a myth. People who die by suicide usually talk about it first. And they're often in pain, and they're reaching out for help because they've lost hope. They don't know what else to do. And so if a person indicate, make mention of anything like that they want to die by suicide, please always take it seriously. Always. Another myth. People who talk about wanting to die by suicide do not try to kill themselves. That is a myth. People who do talk about it have tried to kill themselves. And oftentimes it's people who have talked about it that actually try to kill themselves or are successful in dying by suicide. Another myth, once people decide to die by suicide, there is nothing you can do to stop them. That is incorrect. Suicide can be prevented, and it have been prevented many, many times. And most people who are suicidal do not really want to die. They just want the excruciating pain that they're in, psychological pain that they're in, to stop. That's what they want. If the pain stopped and life went back to a good place, or, an even better place than it was before, those individuals would not want to take their lives. It is unnatural for a human being to want to take his or her life. Our natural inclination is to protect our lives, to guard our lives. That's the natural thing. And so when an individual is at a point where he or she wants to take his or her life, it is not a natural thing, and that person is in a lot of pain. Another myth. Suicide only strikes people of a certain gender, race, financial status, age, etc. As I read to you in the stats before, suicide is respecter of no one, and it can strike anyone, any family, any race, any gender. Doesn't matter what your financial status is. We see where we have people that are multimillionaires taking their lives, and we see there's people that are also very poor taking their lives. So your financial status does not dictate whether, one's financial status does not dictate whether he or she will die by suicide. Another myth, people who attempt suicide and survive will not attempt suicide again. Once again, this is a myth, and it is not correct. People who have attempted suicide and survived have often made additional attempts. More than one more attempt. So additionals, some people tried twice, 3 times, even more than that. Another myth, people who attempt suicide are weak. No, they're not weak. They're in pain. They might have a chemical imbalance. Many people, you might see a person and think they're strong, not really knowing what's going on in their mind. And you think this is a strong person, and then that person can die by suicide. By no means is the person weak because they die by suicide. The person's going through a lot. Why they die by suicide. That's what's going on. This one's a big one. Another myth. You should never ask people who are suicidal, or you should never ask the person who's suicidal if they are thinking about suicide or if they've thought about a method, because just talking about it will give them the idea. And I understand that is very scary. If you have an inclination that someone's thinking about suicide, you might be scared to say to that person, are you thinking about suicide? Because if you say it to them, then you might be giving them ideas or, might somehow be encouraging the individual to die by suicide. That is not the case. It is very, very important. If you think a person is thinking of suicide, and usually you can know this by what the individual says. They often say things like, I can't take it anymore. I've had enough. I don't want to wake up tomorrow. You won't see me again. There's lots of different things that people could say that will make you kind of think, what does he mean by that? Or what does she mean by that? This life is too difficult for me. I just can't take it anymore. Lots of things that could be said that if you think about what's said, you realize and recognize that the person is hinting towards ending his or her life. And so it's very important to ask, because in you asking them, it won't give them an idea for suicide. In you asking them, then you will know what the person's thinking. You will know about their mindset. You'll know about their intentions. Sometimes people just want someone to listen. They just want to be heard and not judged. And by you asking that question, are you thinking of hurting yourself? Are you thinking of, dying by suicide? I know a lot of people still use the word committing suicide. We no longer use that. We no longer see that as appropriate. So we say die by suicide. Or are you thinking of taking your life? Are you planning on hurting yourself? Those are questions that you can ask. And this is going to give you an idea as to what's going on. And someone might say, you know what? Oh, everything's just been so stressful. And they might tell you their story as to why they're in the situation they're in. And in telling you that story, why they're in that tunnel vision of taking their lives, they might feel a release and recognize someone cares. And in just that conversation, they can start thinking differently that maybe my only way out is not suicide. So it's very important to talk about it. When people who are suicidal feel better, they are no longer suicidal. That's another myth. Sometimes people who are suicidal feel better because they have decided that they are going to die by suicide and may feel a sense of relief that the pain that they're in will be over. So it's not always the case that because they feel better, they're no longer suicidal. That feeling better might be, you know what, I'm going to end it, and it's the best thing for me, so I'm relieved. Another myth. Young people never think about suicide. They have their entire life ahead of them. Not true. As you heard in the stats, suicide is the third leading cause of death for young people, ages 15 to 24, and children under the age of 10 have died by suicide. Individuals usually die by suicide for two major reasons: mental health issues and drugs. Worldwide, suicide is among the three leading cause of death among people aged 15 to 44. An estimated 2 to 15% of persons who have been diagnosed with major depression die by suicide. Suicide risk is highest in depressed individuals who feel hopeless about the future, those who have been discharged from the hospital, those who have a family history of suicide, and those who have made the suicide attempt in the past. So these are things that put them at higher risk. They're depressed, they feel hopeless, they've just been discharged from the hospital, they have a family history of suicide, and they've attempted before. An estimated 3 to 20% of persons who have been diagnosed with bipolar disorder die by suicide. Once again, hopelessness, recent discharge from hospital, family history, and prior attempts make the risk higher. An estimated 6 to 15% of persons diagnosed with schizophrenia die by suicide. It says suicide is the leading cause of death, a cause of premature death in those diagnosed with schizophrenia. And between 75 to 95% of these individuals are male. At high risk are individuals who suffer from depression at the same time as another mental health illness. So, for example, they have the presence of substance abuse along with the depression, anxiety disorders, schizophrenia, bipolar. So they have depression and then another disorder as well. People with personality disorders are approximately 3 times as likely to die by suicide than those without. And between 25 and 50% of these individuals also have a substance abuse disorder or a major depressive disorder. So once again, mental health illness and drugs play a major role in individuals dying by suicide. So I am going to give you some numbers that you can utilize if you're having suicide ideation or you feel like you are going to hurt yourself by taking your life. So I'm going to give these numbers out, but they will also go across the screen. And so in Canada, we have Talk Suicide Canada. And the number for that is 1-833-456-4566. If you are in Quebec, the number for that is 1-866-277-3553. There's also the Kids Help phone. And yes, as I said, kids do have suicide ideation, and unfortunately, kids have taken their lives. The number for the Kids Help phone is 1-800-668-6868. Then, if you think you're in imminent danger, if you think that's it, I can't take it anymore, I'm going to do something to myself, then please call 911, or if you're able to, go to an emergency department. There's also Wellness Together Canada. You can call this number as well, 1-866-585-0445, and they do offer counseling as well for free. You can also, for your local community, look up the Crisis Center, and you could call them as well. In the States, the United States, they do have a new number now, and it is 988, and it's called the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. So just 3 digits, 988. and it's called the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. So those are some numbers that you can call if you are feeling like you are going to hurt yourself, or if you're having thoughts of hurting yourself. There's also the possibility that you might know someone who's having thoughts, or who might have just informed you that they're going to take their life. If it's possible to be in the person's presence, or if you're in their presence at that time, you would want to encourage that person to go to the hospital, and more so go to the hospital, the emergency department, with that person. If it's a person that's not in your presence and you're very concerned, you can call your local non-emergency police phone number and ask them to do a welfare check on that person. If you can give them the address and say, I was just talking to my friend. He or she says she's going to hurt herself, she's going to die by suicide, or she's going to take whatever or do whatever, then give them this information, give them the address, and ask them to do a wellness check, and they will do that. So it is very serious, a very serious topic. We don't talk about it enough, I think, because maybe we think that it's not something happening in Christendom or in the church world, but it is happening in the church world, where people who identify as Christians have taken their lives, are having suicidal ideations. So it's very important that we know that it's not specific to any type or any class of people or any sect of people, but it can happen to anyone. However, if you're a Christian, I do want you to think about Psalm 147, verse 3, if you're having these thoughts. And it reads, "He healeth the broken in heart, and he bindeth up their wounds." I'll read that again. "He healeth the broken in heart, and bindeth up their wounds." And I'll also read Psalm 34, verse 17 to verse 20. And it reads, "The righteous cry, and the Lord heareth, and delivereth them out of all their troubles. The Lord is nigh unto them that are of a broken heart, and saveth such as be of a contrite spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivereth him out of them all. He keepeth all his bones, not one of them is broken." Please know that Jesus loves you, and it is not his intent for you to hurt yourself and for you to take your life. Please don't hesitate to use one of those numbers that I have given you if you are having suicidal ideations, thoughts. If you have a plan and if you have an intent, please make sure to reach out. If you don't want to reach out to a friend or a family member or to the pastor or a clergy member or a sister or brother in the church, please reach out to one of these numbers and they can help you. God bless you. Until next time.
Everything will be alright. The whole world's in his hands. Your whole world's in his hands. In the darkness, in the trials, he's faithful and he's true. Your whole world's in his hands. You don't know how to start again. Oh, oh, oh. Everything will be alright. Everything will be alright. Oh, yeah, yeah. Don't know how to start again. Oh, oh, everything will be alright. Oh, he's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole wide world in his hands. Todo el mundo en su mano está. Todo el mundo en su mano está. Todo el mundo en su mano está.